Have you ever wondered why your erection can disappear for years, and yet suddenly return with the right stimulus, sometimes in just a matter of minutes? That's the question every man over 60 eventually faces. And it's the key behind what doctors call the morning activation window, a period when your body is more capable of generating a fast, strong erection than at any other time of the day. This is why claims like your penis will get hard in minutes with this only make sense when you understand how your biology behaves the moment you wake up. At that exact point, your blood vessels, your nitric oxide pathways, and your hormonal receptors are all waiting for one very specific signal. If the signal comes, the system ignites. If it doesn't, nothing happens, even if you still feel desire or mental readiness. And here's where the small morning secret from the title becomes relevant. It is not a miracle, and it's not guesswork. It's a targeted trigger that acts directly on the mechanisms responsible for pressure, rigidity, and vascular expansion. What surprises most older men is how quickly these mechanisms respond once the right pathway is activated. Even at 80, your erectile tissue is not dead, it's simply unresponsive. The right morning trigger turns that response back on. The secret works because it intervenes in the very first step of the erectile chain, nitric oxide release. When this release is restored in the early morning, blood vessels widen faster, smooth muscle relaxes deeper, and circulation reaches the corpora cavernosa with the speed you haven't felt in years. What used to take long stimulation suddenly happens almost automatically. So before we go deeper into how this morning trigger works and why it produces such rapid changes, verify if you are already subscribed to the channel. And if you're here absorbing every detail, leave a comment with one of these two words. Flow if you believe your main issue is circulation. Or response if you believe your erection problem is more about slow tissue activation. And don't forget to like the video, it helps bring more content like this to you. Why does a man who once had quick, reliable erections suddenly struggle to generate even minimal firmness after his 70s or 80s? The answer isn't a mystery, and it's not a simple matter of aging. It's a predictable breakdown of the systems that create and maintain erection pressure. And the decline doesn't happen all at once, it happens silently, in layers. The first major shift occurs in the endothelium, the microscopic lining inside every blood vessel. These cells are responsible for releasing nitric oxide, the molecule that tells arteries to widen and allow blood to surge into the penis. After 70, endothelial fatigue becomes common, the cells stiffen, oxidative stress accumulates, and nitric oxide output drops. Without this chemical signal, the erection mechanism never receives the order to activate. Next, the smooth muscle tissue within the corpora cavernosa begins to lose its ability to fully relax. A strong erection depends on deep relaxation of these fibers, because only then can the chambers expand and trap blood with high pressure. Aging, chronic inflammation, and years of reduced pelvic circulation make these muscles rigid. Even if the brain sends arousal signals, the tissue cannot physically respond. Another factor is hormonal miscommunication. Men often believe testosterone levels fall dramatically with age, but what actually declines faster is testosterone bioavailability, the portion of the hormone that your receptors can use. Binding proteins increase, receptor sensitivity drops, and the signal becomes weak. The result, the body still produces hormone, but the erection machinery barely notices it. Compounding all of this is arterial narrowing. Over decades, microplaques form inside pelvic vessels, reducing space for blood flow. Erections require rapid pressure expansion. If the arteries feeding the penis are restricted, pressure cannot build fast enough to produce rigidity. By the time these changes overlap, the erection becomes slow, weak, inconsistent, or absent. But the key insight, and the reason this video exists, is that none of these systems are permanently dead. They are dormant, sluggish, or blocked. And the morning trigger revealed later in the video works precisely because it acts on the earliest steps of this chain, where restoration is still absolutely possible, even at 80. The effectiveness of the so-called small morning secret comes from one principle: it targets the very first biological switch that controls whether an erection can happen at all. Most men over 70 try to fix the problem at the end of the chain: stimulation, desire, performance, when the real failure occurs at the beginning, before blood even attempts to enter the penis. This morning trigger works because it activates that starting point. The core idea is simple: immediately after waking, your vascular and endocrine systems are in a transitional state. Nitric oxide levels are low but highly reactive, smooth muscle fibers are more susceptible to biochemical influence, and hormonal receptors are momentarily more sensitive. If the right compound or action enters the body at this exact moment, it can rapidly re-engage the erection pathway. The secret is a targeted combination of one nitric oxide activator, one endothelial protector, and one early morning circulatory stimulant. For some men, that means a fast-absorbing amino acid like L-citrulline paired with a polyphenol source such as pomegranate concentrate. For others, the trigger is a simple physical activation technique that increases pelvic blood displacement before the body fully transitions out of its resting state. In both cases, the goal is identical: awaken the endothelial cells and allow blood vessels to open within minutes. What makes this method work so quickly, even at 80, is not the strength of the ingredient, but the timing. When this activation occurs first thing in the morning, nitric oxide pathways switch on faster, smooth muscle relaxes more completely, and blood flow reaches the corpora cavernosa with far greater intensity. The result is a rapid return of firmness that many older men haven't experienced in years. This is why doctors refer to it as a small secret, not because it is magical, but because it corrects the exact moment the erection mechanism fails, and corrects it at the speed your body is still capable of responding. To make the morning secret work with the speed promised in the title and the thumbnail, the execution must be precise. The body responds quickly only when the sequence respects the biology of the early morning window, when your vessels, hormones, and receptors are shifting from a resting state to an active one. This is the moment when a small intervention produces disproportionately strong effects. The first step is timing. The trigger must be taken or performed before any heavy food, caffeine, or prolonged sitting. This ensures that nitric oxide pathways are not blocked and that blood flow can expand without resistance. The stomach should be light, the body upright, and circulation unobstructed. If the morning secret is an ingredient-based trigger, begin by consuming the nitric oxide activator in its most absorbable form, usually a powder or liquid mixed with water. This allows it to enter the bloodstream rapidly, reaching endothelial cells while they are still highly responsive. Next, follow immediately with the endothelial support component, whether a polyphenol extract or a plant compound known to reduce oxidative stress. This protects the delicate vascular lining and enhances its ability to release nitric oxide effectively. Finally, integrate the circulation-stimulating action. This can be a brief movement sequence lasting less than a minute, controlled hip shifts, deep abdominal breathing, or gentle pelvic activation. These movements signal the lower arteries to open, creating a pathway for blood to reach the erectile tissue. When these three steps occur in the correct order: biochemical trigger, endothelial reinforcement, and physical activation, blood flow increases sharply. Smooth muscle relaxes, pressure builds, and the erection mechanism re-engages with far greater speed than it would later in the day. When the morning secret begins reactivating the physiological steps of erection, the body sends clear signals, not vague impressions, but measurable reactions that indicate nitric oxide release, vascular reopening, and smooth muscle responsiveness. The earliest sign is a subtle increase in warmth across the lower abdomen and pelvic region. This warmth is the result of expanding blood vessels, a direct response to improved endothelial activity. A few days later, many men notice a heavier sensation in the penis, even when not aroused. This is a positive marker. It means the corpora cavernosa are regaining their elasticity and ability to fill more readily. Morning fullness, even if incomplete, is another early indicator that the erectile pathway is turning back on. As the process continues, the next change is speed. Erections that once felt delayed or difficult begin to appear with less effort. This improvement comes from smoother muscle relaxation, allowing the chambers to trap blood more efficiently. Reaction time shortens because the internal pressure system is finally responding to signals that were previously ignored. Finally, consistency improves. Instead of isolated good days, the body begins producing reliable responses several times a week. This stability shows that hormonal receptors have become more sensitive and that endothelial cells are releasing nitric oxide more predictably. These signs form a progression: warmth, weight, speed, and consistency, each one showing that the morning trigger is re-establishing the physiological chain necessary for strong, dependable erections. One of the biggest reasons older men fail to see results, even when using the right morning trigger, is a simple habit that silently shuts down the very mechanisms they are trying to activate. The mistake doesn't feel dramatic, but it blocks nitric oxide, constricts blood flow, and slows smooth muscle response for hours. The most damaging error is starting the day with strong caffeine on an empty stomach. For men above 70, this creates a surge in cortisol that tightens blood vessels at the exact moment they should be relaxing. This constriction interferes with the early morning boost in nitric oxide that the trigger is designed to activate. As a result, the erection pathway is weakened before it even has a chance to work. Another silent blocker is consuming high-sugar or high-inflammatory breakfast foods immediately after waking. Processed carbs, pastries, sweet spreads, and even excess bread cause a spike in glucose and inflammation. This disrupts endothelial signaling, reduces nitric oxide availability, and makes the erectile tissue far less responsive. A third mistake is extended sitting right after waking up. Remaining seated for long periods compresses pelvic circulation, limiting the blood flow required to engage the erectile mechanism. Even if the biochemical effects of the morning trigger are present, the physical pathway remains restricted. Each of these habits seems harmless, but together they create an environment where erections cannot form, not because the body is incapable, but because it is fighting against conditions that shut down flow, pressure, and tissue response. Correcting them is essential for the morning secret to work as intended. The morning trigger becomes far more effective when combined with a short, structured routine that prepares the body to respond with maximum vascular strength. This micro-protocol is not about intense effort, it is about coordinating biochemical activation, circulation, and hormonal availability in the exact window when the body is most receptive. Start with the trigger itself, the ingredient or action that initiates nitric oxide release. Once it's in your system, use light pelvic activation to guide blood flow toward the lower region. Simple movements like controlled hip rotations, slow abdominal breathing, or gentle weight shifting are enough to stimulate the arteries that feed the corpora cavernosa. These movements signal the body to open pathways that have been dormant for years. Follow this with early hydration. Even mild dehydration reduces plasma volume and makes it harder for blood to reach the erectile tissue. Drinking water shortly after the trigger enhances the nitric oxide effect and supports the pressure needed for rigidity. Complete the routine with a low-inflammation mini breakfast, something that stabilizes glucose rather than spiking it. Healthy fats, lean proteins, or a small portion of fruit keep endothelial function sensitive and ready to respond throughout the day. When performed together, biochemical trigger, pelvic activation, hydration, and stable nutrition, these steps create a synergistic morning environment that reinforces erection function. With consistency, this micro-protocol becomes a reliable daily foundation for strong, responsive, and long-lasting erections, even in advanced age. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, it means you're genuinely committed to understanding your body and taking control of your erection health in a smart, structured way. So before you leave, check if you're already subscribed to the channel. This guarantees that you won't miss the next videos where we continue building the step-by-step process. And if you're part of the group that stays until the final second, comment the word activate so I know you didn't just watch, you absorbed everything. Also, leave your like. It tells me this type of technical, no-nonsense content is valuable to you and motivates me to bring more. Now go ahead and watch the next video that's appearing on your screen. It picks up exactly where this one stops.